Hey everybody, this is the next edition of the Getting It Done series of training videos. Uh, Today we're going to be focusing on shortcut keys in Final Cut X. Now, excuse me, shortcut keys are going to be a real lifesaver in any kind of Mac operation, but in Final Cut X and any editing program, these are the things that will help you get really quick when it comes to editing. The better you know your system, the better you know your shortcuts, the faster and more efficient you will become when it comes to editing. Now, to begin with, I want to talk about the Mac keyboard itself, and I'm just bringing this up on the screen so you guys can see it. There's three buttons that you have to really pay attention to when it comes to the Mac keyboard. First is the Command key. Now, for all of you guys who are PC users, your Command key right here does a lot of the same functions that your Control key would do on most PCs. So your Command key is going to be where you're going to copy, cut, paste, do a lot of that kind of stuff. So just kind of keep that in mind that in most cases, when you say Control on a PC, it's going to be Command on a Mac. Your Control key is kind of like an alternate command. So if you're using, for example, a 2-button mouse, let me give you an example of this. If you're using the normal Mac mouse, one of the things that you might notice is that you don't have a right-click button. Now I'm using a 2-button mouse, so I can access this little drop-down menu, but if I hold down Control, like I am right now, and click once on my mouse, that's how I bring up this little extra dialog box, and that works in most Mac applications. Let me bring Final Cut back up. So, just understand, Command right here does most of what we would do Control with on a PC. Control acts as basically an alternate command key. Now you also have function that is often associated with doing some alternate functions of the commands that you have associated with these objects at the top of your Mac keyboard. So instead of just brightness or basically your breakout mode of your screen like this, which is F3, or um, your dashboard in F4, play functions or volume functions when you're talking 10, 11, and 12, you can actually assign these F functions up here at the top for shortcuts with function. We're going to have one option here that we're going to talk about today where function is going to come in handy. So when I say function, that's the button I'm talking about. Alt Option right here actually does some fun things as well, and we're going to talk about that in some of the later videos, but not necessarily in this. The ones we're going to focus on today are Command, Control, and Function. So let's get into it. Alright, so this is the basic sequence that we began to build in the sequencing video in the Getting It Done project. And I want to talk about just some basic commands first, or basic shortcuts first. In short, let's talk about if you want to select everything in your timeline. If you want to select all of your clips or all of your clips up here in the library or all of your clips in the timeline. What you would simply do is select in the timeline and then hit Command A for all, and that will select everything. Command A and you will select everything. Now if you wanted to go back and deselect anything, you can hit Command again and simply click the clips that you want to take away. Now you can do some fun things like, for example, if I were to go into Inspector, take the audio and set all of this at a certain level. Let's say start with 0 and then reduce the audio of everything. You'll notice that I can actually adjust the audio of my whole clip or my whole package, my whole project, just by selecting all of the clips on my timeline. Same thing goes up here in the event library. I can click, hit Command A, and I select everything in my event library. So that's the first of the shortcuts I want to talk about. Now, when you do select all selects, let's Command A, you also need to understand that you've got two different types of selects that you can use in conjunction with it. Direct select, which is Command, where you can literally hold down Command and directly select or deselect specific clips from a timeline. Same thing goes, or from event library, import queue, or even timeline. For example, down here, select everything, and I say I don't want to adjust that, I don't want to adjust my transitions, and maybe not my layered options, but maybe I want to adjust the volume of everything else. So you can see all the rest of the volume is moving. I also can do what's called a range select. So for example, if I click clip 61 and I want to select all the way to 66, what I can do is not hold Command this time, but hold Shift on the keyboard, and I can select all the way between 61 and 66. So Command is a direct select, Shift is a range select. Okay? And then of course the shortcut we're talking about right now is Command A for select all. Command A for select all. By the way, the range select does work here as well. Click, hold Shift, and select the end of your range. Everything between the first and the last clip will then be selected. So that's the first. Command A, select all. Command C, Command X, and Command Paste, or Command V, are copy, cut, and paste, respectively. So for example, if I wanted to, let's just take a text element. We've talked a bit about these already. We're going to talk more in a later piece. But I'm going to take the East Texas Explorer lower third. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to trim it up. And I'm just going to type in Casey Hart, just my name there. If I needed to put this in somewhere else, what I could do is select it, hit Command C to copy, move the playhead somewhere else in my timeline, like say right here, and hit Command V to paste. And I've put the exact same text element somewhere else in my timeline. Now I can go ahead and change the text if I want to, but the duration is exactly the same no matter where I go. If I want to do away with it, I just hit delete. If I actually want to take something out and move it around, obviously we've talked about simply moving things, or you can select, hit Command X to cut, move your playhead, and then Command V to paste. So that works in pretty much every area of Final Cut, from the event library to the timeline and a variety of other features we'll talk about later on. You can even copy, cut, and paste things like effects throughout your project, and we'll talk about that in the next big section, which is taking your projects to the next level. So remember that. You've got to understand how to copy, cut, and paste before we can take this to the next level. Let's move on. The next thing we want to talk about is zooming in and zooming out. Command plus and Command minus. Now, the closer you get into your project, the more detail you can actually affect in Final Cut or any other nonlinear editing program. So while this is very easy to see as we just scroll through our project, if we were to hold Command and then hit plus, 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 you can see we get closer to our project and we can take a more in-depth look at what's going on here. This also would allow us to fine-tune our editing, and make little bitty tweaks. Then if I zoom back out, Command minus, I can zoom all the way back out almost to, well, almost to the point where you can't really even see the individual clips in this one. But you see how it's very difficult to see the individual edits when you're this far zoomed out. You shouldn't be afraid to zoom in. In fact, I usually zoom in and out very often when I'm working in Final Cut or any other editing program. You also have a zoom tool under your mouse controls that you can use as well, but I usually find Command plus and Command minus is a much easier way of getting around in Final Cut. Next, Command E, Master Share. Now this goes into exporting. We did a whole video on that, but if we were to go into File, Share, and again we do not use Export XML in most cases, File, Share, Master File, you'll see the shortcut is right there. This flower is Command. If you look at the keyboard, you'll see right there on the Command key. So File, Share, Master File, there's the shortcut, Command E. So if I'm ever wanting to just export, if I need to do this quickly, I hit Command E, and whatever project I'm working on goes immediately into export mode. And it's exactly where I need it to be as well. So it's a shortcut for exporting your files. Let's move on. This is one we haven't talked about in any of the other videos yet, but it comes in handy a lot, which is change duration. For example, if I am just trying to do a little bit of tweaking with this particular clip, and I'm seeing as I'm tweaking, right up here you can actually see, or rather right above the timeline, you can see how much time we're talking about. So 2 minutes, or 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. If I just want this to be at 2 seconds even, I can select a file, or select a clip rather, hit Control D. Now I did say Control, not Command this time. Control. So again, just to call your attention to it, we're talking about Control, not Command. Control, not Command this time. So Control D, and you'll notice Control D, and you'll notice that the little clock right here in the middle actually turns blue, and you'll see this new symbol pop up. This is basically telling you what the duration is right now, and it's waiting for you to give it a new duration. So this is 4 seconds and 5 frames. So if I wanted 2 seconds, what I would have to do is type in 2. So right now it's set at 2 frames, 0. Now it's 20 frames, another 0. Now it's 2 seconds. When I hit enter, it locks it down to 2 seconds even. So if you need to make any quick alterations to duration of a project, you can use that duration shortcut. Control D, let's just say 3 seconds now. And there we go. This is very, very helpful if you just need to time some random piece of B-roll out to perhaps help you fix the duration of your overall project. You know exactly how much time you need to add to it, and you can just very quickly Control D 3:15. That's 3.5 seconds, because again we're shooting in this case at 30 frames per second. So 30 frames per second, each second is composed of 30 frames, which means we're not looking at 60 here under frames, we're looking at 30. Half of that would be 15. If you want 3.5 seconds, it would be 3 seconds and 15 frames. Alright, let's move on. If you went back to the last video on sequencing, you'll remember this, but mark in, mark out, and then clear marks. As we're adding things to a sequence, what we would do is very quickly go in, find the area that we want. I will mark the end spot of a sequence or a clip we want. We'd find the end of that clip. O would mark out, and then we would simply drag it in and put it where we want it to be in the timeline. So I'll just put it right there at the end. If we said, oh, that's not exactly what we want to do, we can always clear this out with function X. Now again, just so you remember, this we're talking about function X. Function X to clear your marks. So to edit very quickly in your rough cut, mark in, find the end, mark out. If we mess up, we can always go in and tweak it a little bit, or we can start from the beginning by just going function X and clear out the marks. All right. Those are the primary shortcut keys that you're going to need to know to get started in Final Cut X. Hopefully these will be helpful to you, and again, it's all part of knowing your equipment. So go out there, give it a shot.